The goal was to diagnose hundreds of diseases instantly from a single drop of blood. No large needles, no heavy lab equipment, and no waiting days for results. This painless finger prick promised to provide a complete picture of human health in minutes. Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford's engineering program in 2003 to turn that promise into a company called Theranos. She was only 19 years old. By 2014, the company reached a $9 billion valuation, making Holmes the youngest self-made female billionaire in the country. She leaned into the comparison to Steve Jobs, adopting his signature black turtlenecks and speaking in an unnaturally deep voice to project authority. Hidden beneath the hype was a medical device that was fundamentally broken. Her proprietary machine, nicknamed Edison, could not reliably run the tests she was selling to the public. A college dropout had managed to build a multi-billion-dollar empire on a medical impossibility, and she did it while the most powerful people in the world watched and did nothing. Holmes engineered an illusion of credibility by securing endorsements from untouchable institutions. These partnerships functioned as a shield, preventing investors and regulators from looking too closely at her science. She started by winning over her Stanford engineering dean, Channing Robertson. His backing provided the initial scientific legitimacy she needed to begin raising millions in venture capital. Next came the boardroom. She recruited political heavyweights like former Secretary of State George Shultz, who used his connections to fill the board with some of the most influential names in American history. The list eventually included former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and future Secretary of Defense General James Mattis. While these men possessed immense geopolitical power, none of them had any background in diagnostic medicine or blood science. A partnership with Walgreens and cover stories in Forbes and Fortune finalized the image of a fully vetted, operational business. For years, it held together, funded by hype, charisma, and $500 million in venture capital. It convinced investors and regulators to trust the reputation of the people in the room over the actual scientific data. Inside the lab, the Edison machine failed so often, they secretly routed blood samples into standard Siemens machines they claimed to be replacing. When those machines produced erratic results, management simply filtered out the bad data to manufacture a false image of accuracy. This deception was enforced internally by Ramesh Sunny Balwani, the company's president and Holmes' secret romantic partner. Holmes and Balwani maintained a culture of extreme intimidation. Employees who raised concerns about the failing science were marginalized, fired, or threatened with lawsuits through aggressive non-disclosure agreements. Theranos operated as an authoritarian regime, organized to protect a carefully curated narrative at any cost. Real patients were receiving terrifying false medical results. These manipulated tests led to misdiagnosed miscarriages and incorrect HIV results, forcing people to make life-altering decisions based on numbers that were simply made up. The illusion was finally broken by low-level 20-something lab employees like Erica Chung and Tyler Schultz. They saw the fraud firsthand and decided that patient safety was more important than the company's valuation. They faced intense retaliation for speaking up. Theranos hired private investigators to follow them and used high-powered lawyers to batter them with legal threats. The whistleblowers eventually took their evidence to John Carreyrou at the Wall Street Journal. His reporting exposed the systemic lies inside the company and sparked a federal investigation. While the world's most powerful people were blinded by hype, the lowest-ranking employees possessed the ethical clarity to prioritize human lives over the company's survival. The collapse was total. Regulators banned Holmes from the industry, partners fled, and a $9 billion valuation plummeted to zero. A jury eventually found Elizabeth Holmes guilty of massive investor fraud. She and Sunny Balwani were both sentenced to over a decade in federal prison. Instead, it became a warning about what happens when belief outruns proof, and when nobody in the room is willing to ask the one question that matters: does this actually work? When the fake-it-till-you-make-it culture of Silicon Valley is applied to human biology, the results are catastrophic.